All right, so today we're going to be covering an article that was suggested to me by one of the listeners, a former classmate of mine back in high school. And the article is from Smithsonian magazine, and the title of it, if you guys would like to read it, which I do recommend because it is a very interesting read, it's "What Will Our Society Look Like When Artificial Intelligence is Everywhere?" And the author is Stephen Talty, and its illustrations are by Jules Julian. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, and just to give a brief summary of what the article is about, and then we'll dive into my opinion of it, because that's essentially what my buddy wanted me to do, is just kind of give my take on it, my opinions. So, in the article, the author is putting together fictional situations in which AI is alive and thriving in our society in the future. In the years 2065, they speculate that this is 10 years after the singularity, which, if you do not know, the singularity essentially is technological growth at a rate that we can't even fathom. So we see the internet at its infancy in the mid-1900s, and then it explodes during the early 2000s, and now it's everywhere. So that's an example of exponential growth within technology, and that took quite some time. There was some incremental steps that led up to a big explosion, to which now everybody has computers and access to technology, and we have computers that we carry in our pockets right now that are significantly more powerful than the computers back in the day. That's exponential growth, and that's taken years to culminate. However, in the singularity, we're talking about that kind of growth, but in a matter of minutes, hours, potentially even seconds. So it's just going to be unfathomable to imagine as of right now the type of growth that will be taking place when the singularity hits. Now, there's some speculation as to when the singularity will take place. Some people debate that it's going to happen in 100 years or so. Some people debate that it's going to happen a lot sooner, as in this article is predicting 2055 for it to take place. This, however, is taking place 10 years after that. And the article pertains to a collection of conversations the author has had with futurists, psychologists, philosophers, scientists, people who are all very deeply invested and deeply interested in the future of AI and want to know how we as a civilization will govern and navigate through this process and this drastic change that will happen inevitably. When it will happen is debatable, but will it happen is a definite yes. That question is answered by a yes. It's inevitable, simply because of the rate of acceleration that we see with technology nowadays. So the first, there's five sections in here describing these fictional situations, and the first one is superhuman rights. And to give a brief summary of what that is, it's a Supreme Court case where AlphaFour, it's an AI that specializes in security and space exploration, has basically felt that it has, or it should have, the same rights as humans do. And so it brought this to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, it's not able to speak for itself, so it hired a slew of lawyers to represent it and speak on its behalf. Now, there's a lot of opposition for the AI to receive equal rights as a person. So there's protesters taken on outside, threatening to attack data centers if the AI gets personhood. And the main reason they're fearful of this is because we, as humans, depend at this time on AI to provide us with our UBI, Universal Basic Income. So people are getting free money because AI is doing all the manual labor for us, all the labor for us, and humans are able to pursue whatever endeavor they would feel so inclined to travel down. So, and also, there's personalized colleges, there's free health insurance, just everything is super, super beneficial for the humans, and we're benefiting off the backs of this super intelligent AI that we have created to do these jobs. Now, the AI itself wants personhood because it realizes, or at least you would assume, that it would realize that it's being treated unfairly. So the biggest argument in here is that is the AI conscious? That's the biggest argument that they have. And how do we tell if it's conscious? Now, what I just said before segueing into the whole major debate in this fictional scenario was that the AI, if it is presenting this case to the court, then obviously one would have to assume that the AI is aware of its current situation, which it's realizing that it's not being treated fairly or on the same level as to which humans are being treated. So there's a sense of awareness there taking place, which consciousness, by definition, is just awareness of self and awareness of situations. And so if you're aware that you're being treated unfairly, which it appears the AI is, and if that's true, then I would believe that the AI would also be aware that it is far more superior when it comes to intelligence than humans are. And so if those two things are true, then it's not only aware of itself, but it's aware of the situation. So if that's true, then therefore it would be consciousness by definition. It would have a conscious by definition. Not only that, but if it has general intelligence, then it would have emotional intelligence as well, because there's evidence suggesting that you can't have one without the other. From psychologists nowadays, there's an article about it in Live Science, and there's also multiple studies that have taken place, I believe, that have linked general intelligence and emotional intelligence. However, it isn't a settled debate yet, because there is no real facts to truly imply that this is true. This is just all speculation once again, but it's a very well documented theory. So if general intelligence and emotional intelligence are linked together and it's able to have self-awareness, but the emotions that it possesses are different than humans, then it still would not discredit the fact that it has the tendencies to at least illustrate that it has consciousness. So in my opinion, when I see this first section here, it to me appears that it does have consciousness, simply because it's aware of its situation and aware of itself, and if it has general intelligence, then it has emotional intelligence. And not only that, but look at it this way as far as the point of the labor and us benefiting from the labor. It's realizing that that we're benefiting from the labor. So then that can be related to historical cases of slavery, where the slaves are aware that they're being exploited for whether it be the ruler, the king, the plantation owner. It doesn't matter, because slavery isn't confined to American history. Slavery has taken place all throughout world history. So it would then realize that it's being used. And if it's realized it's being used, then there are some ethical issues or ethical questions to be asked, simply because what we're doing is enslaving a superior being and having it do work to benefit us. And it's realizing that. And there are people who still refuse to allow them to have freedom. And so those people who are against the AI having equal rights are rightfully fearful of losing their UBI and maybe their existence. But is it right to enslave something that understands it's being enslaved and wants equal rights? That to me doesn't seem very smart. Not only that, but to even conceive of the fact that we would end up in this situation where an AI is fighting for its rights is an extremely benevolent picture of the future. Because in this situation, what this is implying in this one section is that the AI is accepting inferiority to us, which to me is completely asinine, because it's aware that it is not being treated fairly, and it's probably aware that it's more intelligent to us. So if those two things are true, then you have to ask, why would it accept from the get to be inferior to us? That is basically like us saying we will be subordinate to our dogs and cats. We will take orders from our dogs and cats and hope that this society ran by dogs and cats will allow us freedom and grant us freedom. When in reality, we could probably easily finagle our way into freedom and probably ruling everything and taking over very easily if we wanted to, if a society was run by cats and dogs, or a species with the same intelligence as a cat and dog. So this, to me right here, this first section, seems way too utopian of a picture of the future. While I do believe that AI will benefit large amounts of people during its infancy before it explodes at exponential rates and enters the singularity, it will definitely provide us with UBI and things of that nature. However, I do not see it being as benevolent as this first section depicts it to be. So, while I do think it's an interesting take on it, it is quite fascinating the way they, lay out this scenario. However, I don't really think this is a realistic picture of what the future will look like. And this is from my opinion, from my research, and obviously I'm no expert, but to think that a superior being who's aware of itself and aware of its situation will be inferior voluntarily to us is a little asinine, in my opinion. So, but that's the first section, and it's called Superhuman Rights. Now, the next section is a little more lighthearted, and it's ultra romance. And basically, just to go over what this subsection is going over, is an AI that helps you find dates and will navigate your love life better than you. And in this scenario, it provides an example of you talking into your soul band, which is what they predict you will be able to have your personal AI assistant on. And you can ask it, hey, I want to find a date. And so then it's going to navigate through, the ocean and find out some fishes that you may be interested in. And once it does that, it will then, give you a couple of options saying, here are your options. These are the people who seem like a good fit for you. And sorry if you can hear that in the background. My dog's drinking water. My wife and dog just got back from a walk. And I don't have an office to record in. I don't have a studio. I don't have nothing. I am just recording in my kitchen. So right in the heart of the household is where I record. So sorry if you can hear that. And going back to the article. So if it is... I have to remember now. We were talking about the soul band and talking about... Okay, so it is presenting you with options for people to date. Now, what it does is, it'll have you pick on who you will date, but it'll give you a suggestion saying, hey, I think this is the best one for you. And typically, what you have found in this situation is that the AI is correct more often than you are when it comes to picking people for your love life. And just to stop right there and inject my opinion on that particular instance and scenario that they're depicting in this article, if the AI knows who's going to be a better fit for you in your life than you know who's a better fit for you in your life, then the AI knows you better than you know yourself, which is a little scary, which then will also beg the question, if the AI knows you better than yourself, why would it once again be subordinate to you? Because then you are showing your inferiority to it. Not saying it's a power struggle or anything like that, but I'm just saying that this is survival of the fittest, and to think that we're going to have intelligent beings be subordinate to us is just insane. If the thing knows it's better than us, then what's the purpose of us even existing? But anyway, I guess I'm going a little off the rails here with this. So, another scenario that it brings up in this section is that it will tell you whether or not you will be happier if you get a divorce from your husband, your wife, whatever. And it can also file the divorce papers for you and settle the divorce and get you started on your new life. So what that implies right here is that there will be no need for a lawyer, because AIs will be able to do that for you. If they're able to settle divorce disputes and all that kind of things, then who's to say it won't be able to handle other disputes? Which then ties back into the latter section that we just covered about the superhuman rights, where the AI wasn't allowed to defend itself and needed lawyers. But if the AI is allowed to file divorce papers and do all those type of things that involve legal counsel, then why wouldn't it be allowed to represent itself in court as well? So if we have proof that AI can handle legal cases on its own, but we will not grant it rights, or we will debate it granting it rights, and won't allow it to represent itself in court, but it can do so for divorce cases, just is a little weird to me. It shows a little inconsistency in the article, in my opinion, that, one section it can't represent itself, and the next section the AI is doing divorce paperwork, it's doing legal paperwork. It's just a little insane to me. Anyway, so inconsistencies I find in the article right there. And also, it shows that if an AI can do a job of a lawyer, then it has general intelligence and emotional intelligence, because in order to be a lawyer, you have to be able to logically put together your argument in a way that will be coherent and persuasive to a juror or the judge. And in order to be persuasive, you need to have emotional intelligence, which are also, I think, telltale signs of what we believe consciousness to be. So this is the second section, talking about romance and things like that, which then also begs the question, if the AI knows you better than you, is there a potential for you to get into a relationship with the AI? And if so, will there be legal ramifications if you want to marry your AI and make things serious? So there's a bunch of questions I have regarding this article right here. And I don't really think it is consistent with the first section that it presents. But that's neither here nor there. I'm no expert on this matter by any means. Maybe there are things that I'm missing. But going on to the next section. Live long and prosper. This section just goes over that our lifespan will significantly increase due to the technology that AI has and these nanobots that will be able to detect your symptoms and match them with millions of cases, and just being able to diagnose you and figure out what's wrong with you. And then the article suggests that then you would be able to take this information to the doctor after your AI scans your body and figures out your ailments and what's wrong with you. Can you plug this in? Yeah. And so it's going to figure out what's wrong with you and then give the information to a doctor. Once again, if the AI is able to detect all your sicknesses and diagnose them with accuracy, then what is the point of having a human doctor anymore? It seems that the AI will be able to do that job for you, and there will be no need for a doctor. Now, there are arguments that, well, an AI can't take over a doctor's job because there's something more than just knowledge and know-how to being a doctor, which I agree with. You got to be a person, you got to be very friendly. You got to know how to break the news to people. You got to have a very, very high EQ, in my opinion, to be a doctor, because it can be a difficult job, especially if you're dealing with a terminally ill patient and you have to break the news to the family that they're going to die in 6 months or something like that. That can be a difficult thing to do, for sure. However, once again, as I've already stated and made my point earlier, if it has general intelligence, then what we know as of right now, then that means it should have emotional intelligence as well. And if it's able to do the job of a lawyer, then it's able to do a job of a doctor. And if it's able to do a job of those two very reputable careers that we see in today's society, then what will it not be able to do? And it's going to do it better than us. So that's the other section that it goes into. And then the fourth one is resistance is costly. And this section goes over, some religious groups who say we don't want to live in these full AI zones, and these AI zones are what were taking place in the first three articles, with the nanotechnology diagnosing your ailments, your diseases, and providing the information to your doctors, to helping you out find, your true love or a date, and, fighting for, equal rights. These are your AI zones. Now, apparently there'll be zones where there are no AIs and communities completely rejecting them. And they're implying that these societies are going to be Christian, Muslims, and Orthodox Jews, just basically religious groups. And this, to me, seems a little weird that one would think a group of people will be able to survive and have sufficient lives in an era where AI is completely dominating labor and making life better for us, because they would be living in a third world country if they're not up to date with technology and they refuse to enter in the singularity. If they're not in the singularity, mind you, once again, this means technology is growing at a rate that isn't even fathomable, whether it be seconds, minutes, hours. It is just incredible the levels of advancements we will be achieving once the singularity occurs. So to think that a group of people will be able to survive sufficiently without being a part of this AI or the singularity is completely asinine to me. This, once again, in my opinion, is, I've already said asinine, but it's showing, I guess, ignorance to survival of the fittest, because this is true throughout history. The more advanced, intelligent beings are the ones that are going to survive. And so obviously the humans who decided to enter in with the singularity and be fully immersed in the AI world that we'll eventually live in are going to be so far advanced and so more equipped to deal with this new world than the latter group or the former group who is refusing to enter in these cities based on their religious beliefs. And there's nothing wrong with that if that does happen, but it just doesn't seem that they'd be able to exist for a long time because they're so far behind. Now, and also in the article, in this part of the article, it does state that these groups will have significantly less UBI because apparently your UBI is based on your data that is received through by AI companies. So they monetize your uses of the AI and then provide you money with them depending on how much data you contribute. And since these groups are contributing far less, they're getting less. And, there's also, shorter lifespans here. But one of the benefits that will take place here, apparently, is that the birth rate will be more significant through here in these zones, simply because, as is true now, the more advanced a society is or the more wealthier a family is, typically they have less children or wait to have children than people of lower income. And people who are in poverty tend to have more children than those who are not in poverty. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons to speculate as to why that is the case, but it is the case. So we're just taking that scenario and applying it into the future with these groups who refuse to enter in the full AI zones. So, which to me doesn't seem that they would last long at all. And this, once again, is really considering that we're living in a benevolent world and AI is just willingly subordinate to us. That's what this whole article is implying, is that AI is subordinate to us willfully. So that's the fourth article. That's the fourth section. And the fifth section is the one that really, really grinds my gears. It's Bigger Brother. And this section of the article goes into how AI will assist nation states in governing and help them make the proper decisions and which ones will have the best long-term effects. Should we pick short-term gains over long-term gains in this particular area, so on and so forth. Just basically helping us out run our countries. And also, it points out that this can be used in very horrific ways as far as countries like China or North Korea will take advantage of their people and have them completely under control by the AI, and you won't be able to get away with anything. I mean, everything's watching your movements and things like that, which is already happening in China, by the way, with the social credit system. They have facial recognition cameras all over the freaking country, well, in the most populated parts of the country, and they have all your information, all your data. They use that to give you a credit score, and depending on what you buy, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, what you do, what you talk about, can all affect that score. That would just be amplified tenfold with AI. And so that right there is showing a darker side of what AI can look like, which I think to me is showing a more honest side of what the potential future will look like, especially if we do nothing to integrate ourselves with AI. Now, I'm digressing a little bit when I, talk about integrating ourselves with AI. That's still part of my opinion here, but not really. Anyway. So this right here really grinds my gears because once again, this is implying that the AI knows it's smarter than us and is voluntarily helping us to achieve a utopian state and to be sure that we're heading in the right direction. It's helping us every step of the way. And this right here is something that I would equate to a family letting their 2-year-old child decide all their household decisions, but the parents are going to help out. So the child wants to see, can we go to the moon? And maybe the parents don't understand why they can't go to the moon, and so they just say we can't go to the moon. They're just using an appeal to authority for their argument, as opposed to reasoning. And so we would assume that the AI would do the opposite and do reasoning. And so try to explain to a 2-year-old in depth why we can't go to the moon. Hell, try to explain to most people, and probably myself too, because I don't understand rocket science, why we can't go to the moon. All the other, things that go into a complex job like that, you would have to try to explain to your 2-year-old why you couldn't do. And that is the equivalence of what it would be like if the AI is trying to assist us and lead us into the future. It will be able to see things and predict things that we wouldn't even be able to fathom. If it is a super intelligent being, far more advanced than us, then it would be leading us in a direction that we would have no clue in where we're heading, and we would just have to willingly, blindly follow its lead because we wouldn't be able to figure out where it's going. Because 1 second to them, in their thoughts, they're going to be able to produce 1,000 years of results compared to us. The way they think will be so much quicker than we are. And that's basically how they'll be able to come up with 1,000 years worth of results, ideas, or scenarios on what will happen throughout a multitude of outcomes. And maybe they'll come up with an answer that we never even thought about because we're not as smart as them. Once again, this whole article is really fascinating. It's intriguing, but to me, it is just a fairy tale, really. I think the only way that we would be able to survive once AI is created and their super intelligence, it's if we integrate ourselves with the AI. And what I mean by that is you can see Elon Musk has talked about this. There's a book that I'm reading currently, The Singularity is Near, which they talk about integrating ourselves with the AI and becoming one. And the reason I believe this is vital is simply because I do not believe that if we have the AI independently thinking on its own, it has general intelligence and emotional intelligence, it becomes aware of its situation, and it becomes aware of itself, that it will voluntarily be subordinate to us. And not only that, but let's say it isn't subordinate to us, but it branches off and controls one half of the world. So in that scenario, then we have to hope that it will do nothing to affect our livelihood. And what I mean is, think about this. When we decide to put up new land, we don't think about the bugs that are under there. We don't think about destroying an ant mound for a second if it's in our way. Even if it's in front of our door, we're quick to brush it out and kill all the ants inside. A bee's nest, we're quick to spray them out simply because they're they're obstructing our infrastructure. They're obstructing our, mobility. And without a second of a thought, we're going to quickly eliminate them so that way we can just continue on. And it's not because we don't like them. It's not because we have anything against them. It's simply because it's not in our best interest to keep that ant out there. And so if we then do split the world with them and they're their own individuals, then who's to say that wouldn't take place? Because that would be the equivalence between us. They will be thinking things that we can't even fathom. I can't even articulate that well enough to explain to you how huge the intelligence gaps will be between us and AI if we do not integrate. However, if we do integrate, then we would have a way for humans to still remain in the world. However, it wouldn't be the same way that we are now. We would obviously have to transcend from our biological form and enter in some type of silicon computerized body in which it doesn't have the physical limitations that we have in this body, and somehow finds a way to transfer our consciousness into that system so that way we can become integrated. I don't know how you would do any of this. I am not a genius. These are just things that I've thought about from my reading and my knowledge around AI as a whole. And yeah, so that is my take on this article. I believe there's some inconsistencies here. I believe it is way too utopian in its vision of the future. And I don't think it's being honest. Truly, I do not. I really do not. And I just find it hard to believe that AI will be subordinate to us. However, I do really think the article's fascinating. I do think it's a really good read, especially somebody who's really interested in AI. And I like to think about the future a lot and see where we're going to go. I'm very fascinated in politics, so I would like to see how AI will affect governance in the future. And yeah, I mean, this article, hypothesized all those things. And it provided an argument, in my opinion, not the greatest of an argument, but an argument nonetheless. And once again, I'm no expert on this. This is an author who has talked to people who are dedicating their lives to this research. So maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know about AI that will change my mind as to being more pessimistic than optimistic when it comes to what the future will look like with AI if we don't integrate ourselves. So that's my take on it. Thank you, Walter Graff, for sending this to me. It was a very interesting read. And once again, if anybody has a suggestion on an article they would like me to cover, please send them my way, and I'd be more than happy to do so. And just a quick reminder, I know I said this in yesterday's episode, but Fridays are going to be dedicated to the special episodes from suggestions from you guys, if there is any. And then Saturday and Sundays, we're going to be sticking to what the podcast originally was doing, which was covering the advancements and explaining why today's the greatest time to be alive. Monday through Thursday, we'll cover the news cycle. So thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. And have a great Friday. Peace.